The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
WOKB, Winter Garden, Orlando.
Welcome to another edition of Real Family Talk. Hello. Welcome to another week of Real Family Talk. This is your host, Jay Real. Hope everybody is having a great Tuesday night. I know I am. It's Tuesday. Every Tuesday, I'm always amped and excited about what a great show we're going to have this evening. Let me go ahead and welcome my guest tonight, and we'll have someone joining us later as well. But in the building right now, we got Jeremy's in the building. How you doing, Jeremy?
I'm good. What's going on, everybody?
And Miss McCray is back with us. She's feeling better this week. How you doing, Miss McCray?
God is good. I'm back. It's Tuesday.
It is Tuesday.
Supposed to say it's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
You got to get it right. You got to get it right. You got to get them signatures together.
Okay. I'll remember that.
And like I said, we'll have a guest joining us a little bit later as well. We look forward to having Miss Bernie. Miss Bernie will be here in a few minutes. But to get it started, I told you every week until the end of the season, I'm going to talk about them. So once again, we got to talk about them Steelers. It was a bad week for the Steelers this week. I don't know what happened, man. We're at home. San Diego came to town. Big Ben is back. But they kind of whipped us up a little bit. I didn't get a chance to see the game because it wasn't on national TV here anyway. But yeah, they kind of whipped us up this week. A little bit of a setback to our playoff desires. But I still got faith. I am not a fair weather fan. I still got faith in my Steelers and the Steeler Nation. We will get it together. We will get in, so maybe hopefully slip into one of those final two playoff spots. And, once the playoffs begins, baby, it's anybody's game. It's anybody's game once the playoffs begin.
This is true.
It ain't anybody's game.
You just got to get there. Once you're there, anything can happen. Just ask the Giants. every year the Giants get in, or every year they win the Super Bowl, let's say, they barely make it in and then end up going on the road and beating everybody on the road and then claiming themselves as Super Bowl champions. So if they can do it, we can do it, baby. We just as good as the Giants. Yeah, man. Shout out to them Steelers, man. Steeler Nation. 407-894-1680 is the number. 407-894-1680 is the number. Of course, the big news today, of course, that is just, dominating all news stories, is what's going on in Michigan. What's going on in Michigan? How you doing tonight?
Yes, I'd like to comment on the Steelers.
Go right ahead. What's your comment, sir?
They're garbage. I'm so sorry. That proves the point. Even though Big Ben is back, when you let the Chargers beat you, that just proves that, should you have kept Charlie Batch or what is it going to do? They're putting away those terrible towels, and they're just calling them terrible, in my opinion. I don't understand how you're a fan, sir.
Well, first of all, nobody's putting away anybody's terrible towels. If anything, we're making them crisp for the next game. But, you know what happens, man. Phillip Rivers, while he's having certainly a bad year, he is not a bad quarterback. And unfortunately, we didn't get to him this week, and so he just kind of stood up there, and he had time, and he picked us off. He's a great quarterback. I said, he's having an off year, but if you don't put him on his back, like most quarterbacks in this league, if you're not putting them on their back and you give them time to kind of pick you off, they'll get, most good quarterbacks, and he is a good quarterback, will pick you off, and we got picked off this week. It happens, man. It's the NFL. It's the NFL.
When Charlie Batch can win you a game, that lets you know it's not about the quarterback. It's about the team. And your team is one word, and that one word is inconsistent. That's what that one word is.
I'll give you that, brother. We are inconsistent this year, but that's okay. That's all right, brother. It happens. It's the NFL. Any given Sunday, baby. That was a great movie, great metaphor. and it certainly holds true. You know, it's the league where the Jacksonville Jaguars pushed the Houston Texans to the brink one Sunday, and the next Sunday they look like a garbage team. So, you know, it's the NFL.
Yeah.
It happens, you know what I mean? But we appreciate those comments. Sir, we didn't catch your name, sir. What was that name?
Call me Steeler Hater.
All right, Steeler
hater.
We appreciate those comments. We love anybody that calls into the show. 407-894-1680 is the number, 407-894-1680. So, yeah, the Michigan, today they pushed through a law that changed the state to become a right-to-work state. And the biggest issue that people are discussing anyway is the fact that it's going to change them from being, which I didn't realize this about unions in the state of Michigan, that you were forced to pay the union dues, even if you didn't want to be a part of the union. You know, that to me, you know, living in Florida, to think that I have to pay union dues even though I'm not going to participate in the union, it just seems a little far-fetched. I remember when I worked locally for the public school system. Of course, the public school system teachers, they have a union as well. And because we are already a right-to-work state, you get to choose. Either you can pay the dues or you cannot pay the dues, but you're not forced. And so to think, you know, in this state, you're forced to pay dues to a union who you may or may not agree with, you know, I would think people would celebrate the idea that now you're not forced to pay into the union. And I mean, if you want to participate, you can, but you're not forced to, you know, because it just seems a little far-fetched that now I have to pay you even though I disagree with everything you're doing. You know, I'd rather have that choice.
I would probably say that's a result of the cars, the automobile industry is what I'm trying to say. It's probably a result of that. You know, those are very powerful unions.
Definitely.
And being in the state of Michigan, you know, before the economy fell with all those factories and stuff they had, I'm sure that's probably had something to do with it being that way for so long.
Well, yeah, you know, in that state, unions carry, especially the UAW, United Auto Workers Union, they carry a lot of power.
Yeah.
I mean, depending on what side of the aisle you stand on in terms of your politics, you know, especially on the right, they'll say that the unions were one of the reasons why the car companies were having such issues, because they were being forced to pay these exorbitant salaries that were really kind of not keeping pace with where they are in terms of production, which is one of the issues that kind of drove them into some of their issues anyway. Perhaps not all, but at least some of their issues they blamed on, you know, some of these salaries that they had to pay because the unions were sort of muscling them. And then some of the rules, you know, I even think about Hostess. Of course, Hostess locally just had to go under, and at least some of a part of their blame, which, you know, it's never on the union exclusively, because clearly management wasn't doing what they were supposed to do either.
Exactly.
But I remember hearing one of the rules that they had locally, whereas if you worked if you were a Wonder Bread employee, you couldn't stock a Twinkie truck, and Twinkie truck employees couldn't stock a Wonder Bread truck, which I just thought was like, wait a minute, we all working out of the same factory, but the Wonder Bread truck got to have its own stocker, and then the Twinkie truck got to have its own stocker. Like, really? Like, you know, when you hear little things like that, it's like, come on, man. Come on. And then the Wonder Bread guy can't stock a Twinkie truck, and the Twinkie guy can't stock a Wonder Bread truck. Like, really? Like, you standing right next to me. You see I'm struggling over here, but because you Wonder Bread, you're like, hey, man, I can't even touch that. That's just like, come on, man. Like, those are the type of rules that they're creating. Like, I get the wages, and I'm cool with that. I can understand that point of view, but come on, man. Come on. That's just a little silly. That's just a little silly.
Well, I mean, but it all comes down to money, really. You know, some companies want certain stuff this way, another company wants certain stuff that way. You know, it happens. Unfortunately.
It does.
I just thought it was hilarious. They were reporting telling they had to go under because they couldn't reach an agreement with the union. Never heard that one before.
Well, you know, again, that's a lot of the issues that the car companies had when they were having their problems. They had to go under because they couldn't work with the union. Heck, in the GM case, the union ended up owning part of the restructured company. I mean, that's how much leverage they had at the table. So, I mean, you know, it is what it is, if you will. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I don't think, you know, I think at the end of the day, I think a lot of the history kind of shows a lot of the right to work states, you know, don't have companies usually come in as a result of the fact that they are a right to work state and that they aren't going to, quote unquote, have to be, you know, sort of bullied, if you will, is the way some people describe it, or have to negotiate with a particular union before they can open up a particular plant, which, you know, there was a couple of companies, Boeing had a couple issues with that and didn't go into a couple of states due to, you know, not being able to come to a conclusion with the union that they would have had to work with. So they chose to go to a different state, you know, to open up their plant that they didn't have to deal with a union. So these are issues that definitely come up. So, you know, in the long run, I think, you know, if jobs increase as a result, which Michigan is hurting, especially Detroit, in terms of jobs right now, if they can get an increase in jobs due to this change in right to work state, I think, you know, I'm all for it. I don't see, you know, I guess if you were pro-union, I guess you could have some issues with that. But in the long run, if it benefits in terms of jobs and the unemployment rate begins to dip in the next couple of years, you know, I say it's a win, you know, regardless of how much history, if you will, kind of has been broken by the Republicans in that state sort of bullying this particular policy in, since the Democrats, sort of like we have in Florida, in that state, they don't quite have much power in the House and the Senate. And so whatever those Republicans want to do, they pretty much push through. And then there's a Republican governor, just like we have here. So he pushes it through as well. But I think long term, if they get an increase or a decrease, I should say, in their unemployment, I think this ultimately should be a good thing. But the people were not happy, man. They even had riots. They had to bring out the riot police in Michigan, man.
But it
was ridiculous.
But you got to understand, once you live a certain way for so long, and not even that. Well, like I say, the thing about the unions is it actually gives employees power, as opposed to let's say a state like Florida that, you know, you're not a big union state. You know, we don't have those industries that's really, you know, pushing these companies that they have to do certain things. So to give up their powers is a big thing, because, you know, it's to me it's one of them situations where they're able to take advantage of their economy at this time. Like, they know Michigan is hurting. They know how bad they need jobs. So you know what? Let's drop these things. Hopefully some companies come in. I'm sure some going to come in. But, you know, at the end of the day, the people just not used to that, you know, because they know that now they're not going to be paid as high. You know, they're not going to get as much money as they usually have. Their benefits are not going to be as good. You know, they're going to have to, you know, the bosses are going to be a little more arrogant, I would say. You know, the higher ups is how they treat people. You know, it's just certain stuff they can and can't do.
You know, I disagree with that, because I don't feel like, you know, so do you feel like in the state of Florida we're somehow being paid a lot less perhaps than people in another state that have a more powerful union? You got any comments on that one, Ms. McCray? You feel like we're being paid significantly less because we're not a pro-union state per se?
I think you have to factor in cost of living also. It's cheaper to be in the South. So I think it's appropriate with our current pay scale as opposed to those up north, because their cost of living is ridiculous. As far as unions, I can't say.
See, but my thing is too, like, we don't have our industries, our big power industries here aren't as such as they are up north. You know, in Orlando, you know, tourism. You know, I mean, come on. They feel like I could pay anybody $8 an hour to come take a ticket or hand a drink out, or, you know what I'm saying? I mean, you know, that's the mindset. So it's like, you know, you know, you've been here all your life. Just means like here today, gone tomorrow. I train the next one. That type of thing, you know, as up there, when you're working in some of those factories, and you have to have skilled labor, you know. So yeah, you can bring in somebody else, but at the end of the day, it's going to cost you more money to keep training somebody to do this type of stuff, you know.
All right.
I see our guest has joined us. How you doing tonight, Miss Jasmine?
I am doing well, thank you. How are you guys doing?
Hey, Jasmine.
Hey.
Real quick, Jasmine, you got any comments on what happened in Michigan today?
Yes, I am upset. I am very upset that they have turned into a right-to-work state, especially because Florida is a right-to-work state. I work for an organization that I will not name that provided citizens here in Florida the right to protection in the workplace. Unions don't only just protect workers' wages, they protect workers' rights, whether it's discrimination, whether it is their right to equal access in employee benefits, promotions. There are so many different facets that unions provide people. And to take away the ability to have union representation because they don't want people to have to pay into those union dues is crazy. Unions provide people with legal representation when they don't have to. And all these people have to pay is $14 a month to receive any service they need to be protected in the workplace. I think it's just sad, and it is just very, very horrific for that state.
Mm. Well, even now in the state of Florida, like I said, I know with the Orange County, the National Education Association, I think the NEA is the one that works with teachers in the state. Even with them, even if you don't pay in dues, they still have to represent you. Is that going to be different in the state of Michigan?
Well, no, I think the state of Michigan will still have that type of representation. And anyone, all of us here, we can still join a union by choice. You can join organizations that provide you with union benefits that aren't necessarily unions also. So there's still going to be representation. There's still going to be a union presence there. But that doesn't mean that they will receive everything that they've previously received.
See, I guess being raised here, and not dealing with unions for so long, I don't see, I see the benefit in having a union, and I can see how they definitely, sort of protect workers' rights, which I grasp that concept. I guess it's the extra stuff that they typically seem to put in, that being sort of a conservative mindset seems to kind of be a bond or a burden to the employer. Fighting for rights of the worker, I think, is good. Somebody's got to step up when the company's doing wrong, but sort of pushing these extra stipulations on these companies sometimes, I think, is where they catch their bad reps. And that's that kind of questionable line, which is, especially in with the auto workers union, that's certainly the rep that they have, sort of pushing on these companies all of these extra benefits that seem to put a burden on the company as opposed to adding to its productivity. But go ahead, sir.
But how is that any different from we're gonna push you, we're gonna make you have your safety standards above even what OSHA says because it'll protect our workers that much more. How is that any different from them saying, oh, well, we didn't make as much money this year, so we're not giving out raises, cost of living raises, or we're not giving out bonuses, or not even that, or just
safety
cutting
standards
salaries.
Are one issue, but
just
like
cutting
I said,
salaries. But the point I'm getting to is that's the company going to do everything it can to turn a profit, whether it is cutting your benefits, whether it's cutting salary or just laying off, so how is it any different? Okay, is it all right when the company does it to squeeze out another dime, or or why is it wrong for the union to do it to squeeze out another dime for their employees?
Because at the end of the day, in order to have a successful union, everybody needs to have a job. And so if you're pushing policies on a company that is in some way, shape, or form hurting the ultimate goal, which is having a job, then you have to step back even, and sort of check yourself, I think. Because at the end of the day, if you push all of these demands on them, and at some point you're stretching what they can do in order to meet their bottom line, because at the end of the day, they still got to meet their bottom line in order to be a successful company, then you're pushing the envelope a little bit too much, if you will. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, I want my job. And I'd rather not take a raise, if you will, to keep my job than have to take a raise, and then that puts my job in jeopardy. And that's, you know what I'm saying? So you have to toe that line, and you have to be careful and not do extra. And like I said, unions catch, especially the auto workers union, catches the bad rep because of the extra. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not trying to say unions don't do good work at all. I'm sure there are a lot of good unions that are doing a lot of great work for their members. You know, but again, it's that extra. It's that extra little benefit. Like I said, you know, you got Wonder Bread employees and Twinkie employees that work in the same building, but the Wonder Bread employees can't do anything related to a Twinkie, and the Twinkie employees can't do anything related to Wonder Bread. So you got, you know, so if it ain't the Wonder Bread day, so the Wonder Bread people chilling, you know what I'm saying? And if it ain't the Twinkie day, then the Twinkie Bread people, you know, they chilling, you know what I'm saying? And then I'm looking at my Twinkies looking like, man, I need some help. But the Wonder Bread looking at me like, hey, man, I can only touch Wonder Bread. Like, come on, man. You know, there's got to be some compromise in there, man. At the end of the day, we all working for Hostess. At the end of the day, we want to all make sure Hostess stays in business and is successful. So if it means that I need to help out, then I need to help out. You know, then I need to help out to make sure that at the end of the day, Hostess is successful. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm talking about. It's those extra, you know. Work is work. Safety is safety. Everything needs to be safety. Everybody wants a fair wage, but it's that extra, man. You got to be careful with the extra. And again, that's for the auto workers union anyway. That's where they catch the rep. It's that extra. You know, it's that extra. I was listening to a guy today, and he didn't mention the company, but he talked about how the union had basically fought to have a rec room for the employees. And so the employees, they had 40 exercise machines in there for their employees. And so the employees complain that, 40 ain't enough. We got to have more. Like, really? Like, they had put 40 exercise equipments in the building for y'all to work out, but 40 ain't enough? Like, come on, man.
Maybe it's 2,000 employees and they don't want to share the machine.
Something's got to give, man. The
company don't share their money, so why we got to share a machine?
Something got to give, man. That's all. It's that extra.
I do understand you saying, but you know, it's just one of them things. It's just business. It's a negotiation. They know when the company has a stronger position, they're going to squeeze them for things that they want. When the union know they got a stronger position, they go squeeze the company for stuff they want. So it's just it's a tit for tat type of thing. They like, okay, well, you got me last time. Now I'm in a good position. Now I'm finna get you. So it just works both ways, you know. I
guess. 407-894-1680. 407-894-1680. Now, Miss Jasmine, she didn't call to talk about Michigan. Miss Jasmine called to talk to me about the fiscal cliff. And so let's go ahead and talk about the fiscal cliff.
Break it down for us.
So, Miss Jasmine, I will give you the floor. Go ahead and introduce to the people. You know, what is the issue with the fiscal cliff, Miss Jasmine?
So, the fiscal cliff, or also what it could be referred to, is the Bush tax cuts. And the Bush tax cuts are tax cuts that were created under the Bush administration that were very beneficial to middle class and lower income individuals, as well as the upper 2% of society, by providing people with cuts to, I guess if you're a corporation, you receive special cuts and special benefits and tax breaks. If you're a middle class family, you receive earned income tax credits. Lower income families receive earned income tax credits for the amount of children they may have. Or if you're a business owner, we're going to give you special deductions off of items that you purchase or things that you get to deduct from your income tax at the end of the year. We are now at a point where all of those deductions, all of those tax cuts, all of those special incentives have reached their deadline, and that deadline is December 31st. These tax cuts will expire. In the event that a decision is not made to modify that sort of tax cut program that the Bush administration came up with, we could possibly be going over a cliff. And when you go over a cliff, you go down. People are expecting us to go back into a recession in the event that a decision is not made as to whether or not we cut taxes, continue to cut taxes for everyone across the board and not receive any revenue for it, or we cut taxes for the richest 2%, place them at the tax bracket that they should be paying at, and receive some revenue or some return on the money that's being circulated throughout our government. So if we go over, we go into critics are saying that we could possibly go into recession. But others are saying that this may be a good thing. No tax cuts, no tax breaks. We see a rise and increase in revenue. But others are also saying without these tax breaks, without these incentives and these deductions, we could see middle-class families drop easily down another tax bracket to lower income, taking away the strength of the middle class that our president has been trying to build during his administration. So those are some of the things that people are really focusing on as it relates to this fiscal cliff and us going over that cliff. Some can say it's a positive thing. Some can say it could be detrimental for all of us involved.
All right. So the big fight, of course, because pretty much where we're at this stage of the game, there's two fights from the Democratic perspective. The fight is let's basically extend it, with the exception of those individuals making $200,000 as an individual or $250,000 as a couple, or the quote unquote the top 2%. That's the Democrats' hurdle. The Republican hurdle is that no, everybody should be extended on these Bush tax cuts. And in addition to that, what there really should be are spending cuts, especially within our entitlement programs, is where the Republicans' hurdle is. And so right now we have this battle ensuing within the media, and they seem to be at least having small conversations here and there, it appears. But that as far as, kind of who's going to play their hand, if you will, and kind of expose themselves for compromise first, if you will, I guess you can say. Right now, I know the Republicans are holding steady on not raising taxes on the top 2%. But in their plan that they created to counter the president's offer, basically they actually did increase revenues, but they increased them by closing tax loopholes as opposed to raising the tax rate on the top 2%. And then, of course, they leveled several $1 billion in cuts related to entitlement programs. I'll tell you my opinion real quick, and I'll let you respond, Miss Jasmine and Jeremy and Miss McCrae here. I think compromise has to be reached. And ultimately, I think when it comes to the president and Democrats, the compromise, to me, clearly the Republicans are at least willing to increase revenue. It's not quite in the manner that the Democrats want, but they are at least making an effort. And so from the Democrat perspective, because again, there has to be some kind of compromise here. Everybody can't get what they want. You have to at least look and take a look at what they're offering and then come back and find a middle ground. The fault that I see from the president and his party right now is that they're staying firm on an idea that they know they can't sell to the other party, which I think is causing a big stalemate. You can't sell that plan as it is, so you have to compromise somewhere. Right now, there are approximately about $600 to $800 billion, depending on the plan you look at, away from finding some middle ground of where the president says he wants to be and where they want to be, and they have to come to a middle ground on that. And what I think is unfortunate at the moment is, and what I can't understand is why the president's doing this tour around the country to promote the idea that he wants to raise taxes on the top 2%. When, I don't think there's a person in the country that doesn't already know he wants to raise taxes on the top 2%. So this tour just seems kind of counterproductive to the whole situation, being that it seems like if Democrats are going to budge anywhere, it has to come from him. And being that he is not physically there to sort of make these decisions, which I know, of course, he can make phone calls, but, there's nothing like a face-to-face meeting. I find some fault, especially in his attack towards all of this. Go ahead, Jasmine.
I know we had a discussion about this prior to the election about there needing to be a compromise, and I think at the conclusion of that conversation among all of us, we said, we are right. Republicans and Democrats need to come together. They need to compromise on the budget. They need to compromise on everything as it relates to passing laws and legislation and moving the country forward. I do think that both parties are trying to come to a middle ground. And as it relates to him doing a tour, this tour, to be quite honest, has nothing to do with Bush tax cuts, believe it or not. This tour that the president is doing, he is trying to shape the mind frame, shape the thought process of voters for 2014. The people who are currently in office right now, who are making the decisions that they're making against the president, are people who were elected in 2010. Those are the same people that we as voters did not come out and vote against or for whatever your political party is. But he is simply sending a message subliminally that, look, these are the people that you elected. These are the people that you may have not elected. But these are also people you need to apply pressure on in Congress to pick up the phone and call these people and say, look, I need you to come up with a compromise, and I need it to be one that not only benefits me, but it benefits my neighbors, it benefits my kids, it benefits my coworkers. There's more to this tour than just him going around the country and making appearances. He is building and shaping a platform for the year 2014. Not an election he's running in, but a Congress that he is going to need to continue to move this country forward. So there are more messages that are coming out of that tour that he's doing than just that of fiscal cliff. But he's trying to tell people, this is what can result if we don't get out and do something to hold our congressmen and women accountable. We want them, I think both sides could agree that there needs to be a solution. Everybody wants a resolution. Both sides agree. Both sides agree that they don't want to raise taxes on anyone. But I think there needs to be a look at the situation, and I think that these individuals in the top 2% need to start paying their fair share. We've given them, these incentives and these deductions for far too long for them to take these jobs outside of the country. We've given you deductions to take jobs out of the country that we don't even live in, that we are not even benefiting from. Raise it up to where it needs to be at, where you at least need to be paying the same amount. I shouldn't be paying the same percentage in taxes as Mitt Romney is. That makes no sense. Pay the amount that you should be paying, and then everything else can be negotiated.
Well, the tax rates are the tax rates. And whatever you set them to be, as long as I pay that, then I'm paying my fair share. That's how I see it. And for people who say, which there's a lot of rich people who tend to lean kind of liberal. They say, I'm not really paying enough. To people like that, I say, hey, if you don't think you're paying enough, well then write a bigger check. Write a bigger check. Put your money where your mouth is, Mr. Buffett. You don't think you pay enough in taxes? Well, write a check for another $100 million if that's what you think you need to pay. That's my argument to that because, first of all, the number is so low when you talk about $200,000, $250,000 that, there's a wide range of people in that who some of them, yes, are more on the, perhaps are in terms of income are there, but that doesn't really account for what they have going on in their life because a lot of doctors fall in that range. And, doctors for the most part, you spend a good $100,000, maybe even $200,000, depending on the school you choose to go to become a doctor.
Yeah.
And then, because you're a doctor, you typically need to have a house that's a good $300,000 to $400,000. And then because you're a doctor, you typically got to drive a pretty brand new car because if you don't, your patient's going to look at you like, man, I don't know what this dude drive a Honda Civic. Like what did he do in life? But so you look at a person like that who's going to fall in that top 2%, and so he's already $1 million in debt. Before he even makes his $250,000. So there's a wide range of people to say that it's these people paying $250,000 or $200,000 depending on where you fall, and so. The other thing I see with the Democrats right now is that they've even held at least press conferences anyway, where they're like, oh, we can't even, it has to go up back to the numbers 39.6 is what it was before these tax cuts came into place. And so they're like, oh, we have to go back to 39.6. And it's like, well, what if you compromise and go to 37? It's like, no. It's got to be 39.6. It's like, see, it's that type of conversation that sort of creates these barriers, barriers that are sort of in place and sort of preventing I think a real conversation from happening, because at the end of the day, nobody when you look at what our government is doing, very few people say it's effective. And so even with the cuts like the president's proposal, there's no real cuts, if you will, that he's proposing that's going to bring any kind of semblance of correction, which is sort of the idea of this whole fiscal cliff, is to sort of bring correction, which is a hard sell. He proposed, I believe it was $400 billion in cuts in his initial proposal, but that was over 10 years. So in essence, that means he proposed a $40 billion cut each year for 10 years. When really $40 billion? Like, we spend $40 billion in less than a month, so really he's cutting nothing.
But look at the programs that he's trying to save, though. You've got Medicare and Medicaid. You have education, transportation, infrastructure, these types of things that can help save individuals who are going to fall at the time that this fiscal cliff, whenever this decision is made, if ever a decision is made. These individuals are going to be vastly affected by it. These are the same people going to be affected by these social services that Republicans want to cut. It's very hard to try to cut so much money from these programs that have already been slashed tremendously.
But
he is simply trying to save and preserve what is left of these different programs and social services.
See, I come with a different mindset. And I'm sorry, 407-894-1680 is the number. 407-894-1680 is the number. I always get it. I love Miss Jasmine.
I love it. I'm not saying nothing. I'm just listening.
I usually disagree with her, but I love these debates.
And I agree. So it's like she's speaking for me, so I don't have to say anything. I love it, Jasmine. I love it. Keep going.
But let's be honest. We're moving into a new phase, if you will, of government and how governments operate. In the sense that, we're living in a world where we're actually seeing, and of course our country is nowhere near this probably at this point, but we're living in a world where we're actually seeing countries really fall, and really, come to the brink of their existence. We're living in a world where we're seeing just people in general kind of struggle. So we're living in a world where we see that how things operated previously, where if you will, quote unquote, the government truly was able to support you to some basic point, if you will. We're seeing a place where that is not going to be truly viable unless we, because increasing the taxes on the top 2% by 4% really isn't going to change where we are as a country. So they're not going to see real significant change by doing that. So we're reaching that place where, going into the future, 50 years from now, the benefits that people are getting today are probably not going to be the benefits that we'll get when we're, 50 years from now, when we're 70, if you will. So that we need to start just preparing as individuals. And from a government perspective, I think it'd be more effective to, prepare individuals so that at least there'll be something. So it may not be the approximately $1,500 check that people on Social Security are getting today, but maybe it'll at least be $1,000 check, or revamp the program in some way that potentially it could be more. And as individuals, young individuals growing up, we have to realize that these are the sacrifices that are going to have to be made, because, like I said, if they really want to make a change and they really want to, quote unquote, make the top 2% pay their fair share, then they're gonna then the proposal on the table has to even be bigger than a 4% increase in their federal income tax, because that's really not going to make a whole lot of difference in where we are as far as the deficit, and where we are as far as the deficits they have on a yearly basis in terms of the budget. It's not going to make a difference. So that, ultimately, if you want to save things, the best way to save them is to sort of trim them back, because obviously these are the programs that are, kind of adding to a lot of the problems that we have.
So your grandmother doesn't deserve Medicare?
Well, first of all, if you go back to the original proposal, they weren't cutting the grandmother's Medicare. What they were cutting is my Medicare. That's what they were cutting. My Medicare wasn't going to be like my grandmother's, is what they were trying to tell me. And I'm fine with that.
But there are still elderly people on there who qualify and can't get it.
And that's
There are
going to be the
people
case now, and it's going to be the case even if the president got everything he wants, he still had that problem. So that's not going to change.
But there needs, but here's the conversation, the compromise. There needs to be a start. We need to start somewhere. And you're right. We know that this is coming, and we as individuals need to start preparing ourselves for that moment when it gets here, and the government says, you know what, we no longer have these government programs anymore. We can no longer provide you with any assistance. We as individuals need to start preparing, but there still needs to be a compromise and a conversation where there can't be cuts that affect drastically the well-being of individuals. And that's what I'm simply saying about this entire argument. And I know what you're saying, the 4% is going to make a huge difference, but it's going to start the process of gaining revenue for this country. It is going to start the dialogue to move forward and say, what else can we do? You know? We've cut our defense down tremendously now that we're bringing our troops back. What are other ways that we can effectively make this work for us? And there needs to just be a start. If there's a start, we can go from there. But that message, you're right, needs to go out to everyone, that we need, as individuals, need to start preparing ourselves. But with unemployment as high as it is in the African-American community, we don't even have to worry about the national. Let's just focus on African-American unemployment. Where is the preparation going to come? How are we going to prepare ourselves with no income coming in, no 401ks to tap into, you know, no retirement to even think of or consider? So there are deeper issues. It goes deeper. It goes much deeper than this 4%.
I agree, but in that vein, in terms of African American employment, there's nothing the federal government's going to do that's going to impact that. In my perspective, that's going to have to be impacted from a local point of view, from individual people within the communities going out and working on tackling that within their communities. That's not going to come from a federal level. So you get the increases that they want. We're still going to have the same high unemployment within the African American community. So that's just going to take, again, working individually, locally, as well as encouraging education within the community, because there's a lot of things that we can do to sort of curb our situations, but we're not educated enough to know that there are resources out there for us. And so it takes education within the black community, again, locally, individually. People in Orlando have to tackle that for people in Orlando, and and across the country, you got to tackle that in your city locally. That's how you're going to affect the unemployment situation. But the federal government black people are too low on the totem pole to even be on the federal government's radar. That increasing taxes on the rich aren't going to improve anything related to the community, if you will.
But that goes back to the tour that you just mentioned and said that it was almost unnecessary and useless. He's going to the locals. He's tapping into his previous OFA volunteers. He's tapping into the coalitions that are on the ground and saying, look, this is one of the many issues that we need to start tackling, and I'm coming to you directly and saying that the fiscal cliff is something that we need you to be paying attention to among all the other issues that are happening in the locations where you currently reside, because you all hold the key to how we move this country forward. Again, it's that subliminal message he's sending to voters and saying, look, yes, the election is over, but the action still needs to continue. This is what I need you all to do, and this is how we're going to do it. That is the message he's sending and putting out there through this fiscal cliff, because we wouldn't be here had we prepared, had the federal government prepared for this months upon months ago. People were not planning to have the president in office right now. People were not planning to have this conversation right now. There was a plan on the table to go ahead and roll out the day after the president was not going to be reelected. This was not even supposed to be a conversation right now. And it is, because it didn't go as planned. No, it did not. But I agree. 407-894-1680. 407-894-1680 is the number. You guys want to come? I mean, I've just been dominating the conversation.
I love it. Like I said, I just let Jasmine talk because I don't need to say anything. She's saying it all for me. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What about you, Mr. Jeremy? You got anything to add?
Well, I disagree with you that I think the federal government can do some things to help the unemployment in the black community. I mean, obviously, they're not going to give out some striking legislation that's going to immediately impact it. But like you was talking about with the compromise is good and everything, but it all goes back to the same old thing. When I first stepped on the show about talking about the people, I don't see how imposing more taxes on the middle class or is gonna help everything. I don't even see how imposing a little bit more taxes on the people who are basically, let's just say, filthy rich. I don't see how putting more taxes on them is going to not help. I think maybe they should pay a little more. And then even though, and I mean, let's just be honest. They can say, okay, the rich, you're going to pay this tax bracket. They got the best accountants in the world. At the end of the day, they're not going to be paying no more taxes that they paying now. Let's just be honest. I don't think some legislation passes is gonna hurt them. And if they do pay a little more, it's not gonna really hurt them. Except the ones that just as irresponsible with their money as people who don't make as much money as them. Them is nothing you gonna do with them. They gonna blow their money anyway.
Which only brings and begs the argument, which you only hear really. The president talks about it a little bit in the Democratic Party, but tax reform. Bigger than, getting rid of Bush tax cuts, there really should be a real conversation about tax reform and getting rid of, like you say, a lot of these loopholes, these thousands and thousands of pages of tax code, and then slimming it down to, a few pages where you don't have 15,000 ways to kind of, avoid paying whatever the federal income tax rate is. So that, you only support that argument, which is a big argument within, especially at least right now, because they want to be different. The Republican Party is pushing, just to be different, to be honest. I can be honest with that. But, there's probably some sincerity there, but they're really just trying to be different. But that's a big thing, too, that's on the table. And there's a lot of different ideas out there as to how to accomplish that. Real quick, though, going back to the president and his tour. So I hear you. It's a subliminal message about the future, if you will. And I still say his time is better spent right now hammering out what he says is the thing that's going to crush us if it's not solved. There's plenty of time between now and November 2014 to go out on a campaign tour. And, while he may be subliminally sending these messages, his conversation is his agenda now, is the main conversation. And then he dropped in Michigan a few days ago or yesterday or something like that, and then kind of commented on the right to work law and stuff like that. But his time would be better spent, to me, as the leader of the country, sitting in a room with the people he says are trying to, sabotage him and work out a compromise. I think as from his opinion, that is the number one issue at the moment. And so as the president, as the leader of these individuals, because like I said, it seems like the Democratic Party is just following his toe. Whatever he says, that's what they're just doing. His time would be still better spent sitting in a room with Boehner and whoever else is going to be at the negotiation tables, figuring out how to solve the problem. And setting up 2014 is just being Mr. Politic, and we don't need you to politic right now. We need solutions.
You just don't like him. That's all it is. He's not going to do nothing right in J. Real's book. Let's just call it what it is. That man, you just don't like him. He's never going to be right for you.
It's nothing to do with liking
No,
people, man.
it is.
Come on,
everything
man.
He does, anything he does, you're going to find some critique about what he's doing.
If the president's name was, Mitt Romney right now, I'd say the same thing.
No,
if he was out campaigning
No, you wouldn't.
as opposed to solving solutions.
No, you wouldn't.
I'd say the same thing, man. I don't care about people and what they are. I don't care nothing about that.
Uh-huh.
But it's the issue. The issue is solve this issue. Solve this problem. talking to me in Michigan and sitting at people's houses and having dinner with them to discuss this stuff, man, that ain't doing nothing to solve the problem. All it's really doing is aggravating the problem. Because as I sit back on the opposite side, saying whatever I got to say, watching you travel the country, saying what you got to say, all I'm doing is looking back like, man, here I am in Washington trying to have a conversation about this, and this dude in somebody's house having dinner, you know what I'm saying, talking about, tax hikes on the rich. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. Who's being insincere here?
But no, let's look at this. Have you ever heard of what's called a lame duck session?
Yes.
And that is currently what the president is dealing with, a lame duck session where the election's over, who's in is in, who's out is out, and these people who are sitting up there with the president right now could care less what he's doing. They have until the 31st, and they are gone. He's dealing with stalemate individuals who could honestly care. There are some of them who could care less. I read an article today that made it very clear that there is no headway that's going to be made from the Republican Party because they are standing firm. Mm-hmm. They do not, the minuscule conversations that they have had have not made any serious headway. Mm-hmm. It seems as though he's wasting more time sitting in the White House waiting on a response about his plan than he is just going out there and being proactive and talking to actual people.
Well, let's be honest now. In the last couple of days, if we look at the articles, him and Boehner had a meeting. I think it was Sunday.
They've been having meetings every day.
Right.
They had an exchange of ideas on Monday, and then today they had another exchange of ideas. So the ideas are coming. It's the compromise and solution that we aren't quite there yet. And so again, though, as a leader, you're not always going to hammer something out in the next couple of days. But if you're not there to have the true conversation, then you can't really get it settled any quickly. Being away, basically having press conferences to talk about what they aren't doing is not helping the solution, no matter how you slice it. It's not adding to the solution. It's only, bringing negativity to the solution, because it's basically you out every day, scolding me in the public eye. And that's not helping anybody. It's just the same for Boehner. Every day he's having press conferences about how he's not getting what he wants. That ain't helping nobody. That ain't helping nobody. Nobody's helping anybody by having press conferences every day about what the other side ain't doing. So to avoid all of that, what both sides need to do is shut the door, tell the media we'll see you on Thursday, maybe, and figure this thing out. To me, that's how he should lead as the leader of the Democratic Party, even in the lame duck section, because things can get done, but it's not going to get done in the press corps. The press corps is not going to get, it's not the way it's going to be solved. It's going to be solved when two people just say, I don't care what happens. Michelle, I might have to see you on Thursday. I know it's Tuesday, baby, but I might see you on Thursday. I will see how this go. Close the door. Figure it out. Stay, 10, 12, 13, 14 hours. You know what I'm saying? There's a compromise out there. And nobody's going to ever be happy with the compromise. So you can't expect everybody to be happy. But if you can get enough votes, because that's all we're really talking about, is get enough votes to make it pass. Which may be possible, but we have to first put the right compromise on the table. That and like I say, it's a start. You're not gonna get everything you want. He's not gonna get everything you want. I mean, in his first proposal, the man put in there he thinks he should have the right to raise the debt limit as much as he wants. Man, the Republicans ain't gonna agree to nothing like that. Why you gonna put that in your proposal? Like, you playing?
Hey, that was wild.
You
that
playing?
Was wild right there.
Good and well. The first time you read that,
to.
Everybody on the Republican side gonna get upset. And come on, that's not even a real proposal. Raise the debt limit as much as you want. Come on, man. Come on. That's what I'm talking about. Real solutions, real compromises. Come to the table, have a conversation, stop playing, this is my side, as what are they doing church songs? My side, hyping in your side. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, man. Let's just have a real conversation, man.
Do you remember when they had to hash out the whole Obamacare? Everyone in the House, everyone in the Senate was out on Capitol Hill until literally midnight, the night that they made the decision to pass Obamacare. They had this tit for tat in the media for months for days, for weeks leading up to this vote, and a final decision was not made until midnight that they made this decision. I can assure you that Christmas Eve, we are going to be glued to our televisions watching these individuals hash out this situation. Because if they don't do it on Christmas Eve, and it's crazy, you're like, well, what does the holiday have to do with anything? It has everything to do with the fact that they get to go home back to their districts and with their families. But for Christmas Eve, we are going to have something firm, without a doubt, that we can say that we can solidly move forward with. Because for some reason, this Congress and this presidency seem to work and operate in the final hour on everything. It seems to become a trend with them. They wait until the last minute, and then there's this sense of urgency and outbursts whatever they have decided to come up with. It's going to be the same thing in this particular case. We're not going to see anything happen tomorrow. We're not going to see anything happen the next day, but I can assure you next Friday, we're going to see a lot more than we've been seeing. We're going to see some firm, hardcore facts, and we're going to see some serious shifting taking place as it relates to this issue.
I agree.
But right now, you're going to continue to see them doing their media tours and their press conferences, and they're going to go back and forth. They're going to continue to do this until next week when it's time for them to go home and it's time for them to be with their families. Because right now, they don't even have to be there, but they're there because they don't have a decision made. But next week, you're going to see a tremendous shift take place in this issue. Even if that means we're just going off the cliff. Something is going to break next week. I can assure you of that.
Well, we'll see. I don't think it's gonna happen next week. I think it'll be around the 30th, if anything, and it'll be a short-term measures is what I expect to see. I don't expect to see any long-term solution. But we'll see what happens. I think it'll be something to kind of tide them over to give them a couple more months to figure this thing out. That's what I think we're gonna get. We're not gonna see any real solutions. This particular Congress doesn't do solutions; they do temporary measures. But
and extend those over and over again. I agree with you on that.
So we'll see what happens. Miss Jasmine, man, it's time for us to go. I appreciate you joining us as always.
Thank you so
we
much.
love having you here.
Love it.
No problem. Thank you, guys. Have a great evening.
You too.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Okay.
We also want to thank everybody for listening out there. The holidays are coming up, man. Real Family Talk always wants to say happy holidays to everybody. This is WOKB 1680, your urban empowerment and inspirational station. Real Family Talk is signing off, and we will see you next week. Yes, okay. I guess we got a few more seconds he's trying to tell me. Just real quick, alcohol has been a real problem in the NFL. And a couple of days ago, of course, they had a real tragedy as it relates to that. I kind of commend the families in this particular tragedy, too, because no one's really blaming anybody. Everybody's really concerned. It seems like they were really close-knit, those two gentlemen. And his family is just as torn as the family of the gentleman who died, and they seem just as much caring for the gentleman who caused the accident as they are for the loved one they lost. But a couple of athletes spoke up about alcoholism, and be careful if you will be drinking. For those out there, please find you a designated driver. We will see you next week, though. This is Real Family Talk. Your host Jay Real signing off.
Rest in peace, Aunt Jean.
You can follow us on Facebook, Real Family Talk. You can follow us on Twitter, Real Family Talk. The website, realfamilytalk.weebly.com.
WOKB, Winter Garden, Orlando.